Do you remember a while back when I tried to make dice with this liquid chrome marker stuff? Well, I had planned on trying to make a full mirror dice set at some point, and a lot of you have been requesting that I try it with the shell effect dice that we've been working with lately. Since I've heard that great minds do in fact think in a similar way, I figured that we'd give it a shot and jump right into this one. No need to go into an explanation about how this two-part mold system works. I've got two videos on that I'll link up in the top right now if you're interested. We just need to start mixing up some resin. I'm going to use Envirotex light resin. Again, it's a part A, part B by volume mixture resin that will come out nice and clear. And you might be asking yourself, Rybonator, are you just going to mix that liquid chrome in that resin? No, we've already done that and it turned out like this. That's not a mirror at all. It's really awesome, but it's not a mirror. As it turns out, most mirrors use black paint behind their reflective silver coating, and I happen to have the blackest pigment that money can buy. Well, at least that I was able to get. And I'm going to put a very scientific amount of that inside my resin. That ought to do it, and we're going to mix that up until we have a nice, really dark black resin. Truth be told, I have no idea if this will make a difference in the final product of the resin. However, that's how mirrors are made, and I want to try and be as accurate as I possibly can to a real mirror. So I'm going to take this black resin and pour it on our inner molds, which have no numbering at all for the dice. This will get us as close as we can to a flat surface for a mirror, because I don't know if you know, mirrors don't actually have dice numbers on them normally. So this is pretty darn accurate. I'm going to take a lighter and pop any surface resin bubbles and put the lid on, shimmying it into place and locking it in with its keys and registration marks. We're going to put it in the pressure pot for 24 hours. I want it to be as hard and as smooth as possible. Any sort of divots that we might leave in the dice might give us an imperfect mirror, and again, I want this to be really, really reflective looking. And you know what? They turned out great for just plain black dice. They're exactly what I need them to be. They're very, very smooth, and they are solid black. I recently rewatched Futurama, and so that 4-episode series on D&D that they did gives me very dodecalicious vibes with these. But they're not going to stay this way long. We don't really need to sand them because we're going to coat them in liquid chrome. And it's time to start airbrushing now. Well, at least that's what my box says, so I figured let's go ahead and do that. You can actually airbrush with this liquid chrome stuff just like you would any normal airbrush paint. A lot of miniature painters do that for swords or really shiny chrome metal plating on their minis. It's got a really nice control knob here. I've shown off an airbrush before, but not for dice, and so this is kind of new. We're going to go ahead and just pour the liquid chrome right down on the inside. You can see how chrome it makes just the little pour spout of this liquid chrome dropper, and once it actually goes down inside the really chrome metal airbrush, it's hard to even tell there's a liquid in there. It's fitting that the airbrush is so reflective in chrome because that's what we need it to do, baby. And full disclosure, I actually tried making a set of dice like this before, just using the marker on it like you've seen on the paper, and it just comes out kind of not good. It's not a full, flat, metallic, chromy surface like you can get with the airbrush. You can see as I'm layering it on here, I can get a really even coat, which I think is the best possible way to try and get a mirror out of these flat surfaces. I tried with some other blank black dice sets to paint on the liquid chrome, and once that I even just dunked the dice into the liquid, but both of those left visible streaks. So for my recommended way to go about this, the airbrush is the ideal applicator. I also found the best way to do it is to just spray on all but one side, wait about 24 hours to where you can actually handle it, because this stuff takes ages to dry, and I'll get back to that in a moment, and then just flip it back over onto one side to where you can completely coat that other side in chrome as well. Again, I had to wait a day to do that, but that was the best way to get it so I didn't have any fingerprint marks from trying to flip it over or get any of the paint removed as it sits down wet on some surface. But gosh dilly darn it if they don't look like mirrors. They are really, really reflective looking, and I would say that they're never going to be as reflective as like a store-bought mirror, right? I'm just not going to be able to get that. But for what I'm doing here with plastic, I would say that that's pretty darn good. You can see how much light they actually reflect if I shine it back at the camera. They are super reflective, but I can only see things in them clearly about 6 inches away in their reflection. Anything past that just becomes too obscure to actually recognize what it is in the dice's reflection. But now we have our inserts and we can put them inside the outside mold. Again, these are the ones that have the numbers, which is great because they'll help keep the dice inserts kind of centered and we don't really have to worry about them going to one side or another. I actually had to wait 2 weeks for all of that liquid chrome mirror stuff to dry properly so that I could handle it and not have it mess up the resin that we're going to pour it into. So I mix up another batch of resin. We're not adding anything to it. I want it to be as clear as possible. We fill up the outside molds about halfway before we put the inserts in. That should leave enough resin to be able to come out out of the mold and completely fill up all the nooks and crannies of all of the little corners that are in here. I know you can easily get gaps or voids in the corners whenever you're doing inserts like this, so it's always better to overfill with resin and just make a mess. That's why we put the wax paper down before we do stuff like this. With the inserts in, the process is exactly the same. We overfill the molds with resin, pop any surface bubbles with the lighter. You really want to make sure you get the bubbles on this one because we want it to be as clear as possible. We're going to put that back in the pressure pot. I actually left it in for 72 hours this time to try and get it as glass-like as possible, and here we go. These are the results. Now, I just say these are the results because I'm a little bit mixed about my opinion on them. They are less reflective than when we put them in there before. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I'm sure it has something to do with the refraction of light going through the resin and then coming back out after it bounces off of the chrome surface. I don't know, but it's less reflective and less mirror-like than it was before. Now, they are still very shiny, and I love them. They look like they are metal dice in a clear shell, and I was pretty proud that I didn't even have to sand these. They came right out of the molds looking really, really good, so I was darn happy with them. They're not what I expected them to be. I would equate it to aluminum foil. You can see, I can still see the reflection of my finger as I move it away from the D4 there, but it kind of fades very, very quickly. This now looks like the non-shiny side of aluminum foil, where before it looked like the very reflective side of aluminum foil. And I'm also making a weird executive decision here. I can read these numbers just fine, just setting them on the table, so I don't think I'm going to ink them at all. I thought about inking them in more of this liquid chrome stuff, but you can see here it's so similar, I just don't think that it's necessary to do, and I can read them no problems. If I add black or gold or anything to the numbers, I think that would just detract from the overall mirrortude of them. Another cool property that they have is though they look like metal, they're very light and they sound like regular resin dice. I don't know about you, but I could read those numbers just fine, and I was really pleased with how they rolled. They look awesome, they sound awesome, and they're so different than anything else out there that I'm really, really pleased with these mirror dice. Now, I know they're not a full reflective mirror. I guess you could just put a tiny piece of mirror inside dice, but that's not going to look as cool as this. You got to do it yourself to get that real mirror feel to it. But I don't know, you tell me, would you have done something different, or do you know of a way that I can keep their reflectivity? And ooh, that end screen looks bad. Let's go ahead and get a mirror of that up in there. Now that looks better. Anywho, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you might want to see some more content like this in the future. Like the video if you like it. If you dislike it, I guess you won't see that, but you can comment dislike down below. I still want to know if you dislike the video and let others know if you dislike it. And let me know some other ideas you might want to see like this in the future. This is kind of half my idea and half y'all's idea, so it was kind of a cool brainchild between us. Thank you again to Dicey Encounters for letting me use the shell molds for this video, and by the way, I have a huge surprise coming for Christmas, so get excited for that. Thank you again for watching. I hope that you have a fantastic day.